What's up, guys? I actually managed to get the Navigator on my account week 1 along with the Catalyst, so we're going to be making a follow-up video going over the Catalyst and 2 builds with this weapon that are absolutely broken. One, taking advantage of the Catalyst on Warlock, and the other, taking advantage of all the DR that you can get with this weapon and other things in the game, and one that is actually practical to do and not just for show. And in my previous video, we already showed off the way the exotic perk and secondary perk works, so I'm not going to go over that again. Both of those are about giving yourself and allies Wolf and Mel and severing targets. But now with the Catalyst, special reload and then fire to create a grapple tangle at the targeted point. So the way this works is you simply hold reload and you shoot a grapple tangle that goes a few meters out. Then from there you can grapple from it freely and it will not consume your grapple grenade energy. And as you see, there's like a floating timer. I think Bungie forgot to add any text to it, but that is the cooldown on being able to use the special reload and create the tangle point. But as long as you keep grappling to the grapple point, and as long as you keep grappling to it over and over again, it will not despawn. So you can easily chain this in into your next one once you're off that 30-second cooldown. And grapple tangles were something you could always take advantage of on Hunter, but this is new to Warlock and Titan. And the reason this is so broken on Warlock is because of, first, Mind Spun Invocation, where every single grapple melee will spawn in 3 thread lanes. So now, not only do we have infinite grapples because of this Catalyst on Warlock, every single time we do the grapple and use the grapple melee at the end, it will then spawn in 3 more thread lanes. So not only infinite grapples, also infinite thread lanes. So it really scales extremely high on Warlock. And to pair even further with this, Warlock has one of the best ways to increase damage of your grapple melee, that being Verity's Brow, where getting final blows with a strand weapon will give us a stack of death throws up to ×5, which will be double damage with the grapple melee. And would you imagine that? The Navigator is strand. So looking at that on Carl, normally the grapple and grapple melee, the impact numbers will be these two 24.5k numbers, but now if we get 5 kills with any strand weapon, it'll do up to double damage with ×5 at hitting almost 50,000 now. And when we combine that with the Navigator Catalyst, we can not only take advantage of that once, we can do that as many times as we want. All you have to do is get a strand final blow once every 10 seconds to keep death throws ×5 going, and you have infinite double damage grapple melees that all spawn in 3 thread lanes. And looking at the rest of the build, pretty similar to the one I used in Lightfall, I'm using the Weaver's Call. You can make the case that the new aspect is equally as good. I think they're both pretty interchangeable. I would use this one for lanes with unstoppable champions as a way to suspend them and stop them, but I think both aspects are very good. Can't go wrong with either. Then the rest of our fragments, as we showed off before, Evolution, Generation, then we also have Rebirth, and finally I have Ascent. This one is a free slot. If you have one you want, go ahead and use it. But you don't need the Woven Mill one because that's built into the Navigator. I have double Ashes assets, a Strength Siphon, Grenade Kickstart, a Heavy-Handed, and Firepower. Both of these still work with the grapple melee. I think they try to change it where it doesn't proc both at the same time as much as it used to, but sometimes it still does. So I still run both. You can run just one if you want. I've charged up along with 2 reserves or resist wherever you want. Then I have the stacks on stacks, along with 1 innervation and 1 recuperation. And finally on my bond, I have Bomber, Distribution, and Reaper, so all the normal stuff, right? And generally I throw on a demo weapon, demo drone junkie, demo incandescent. Either works, then I take advantage of the strand machine gun with demo, or whatever heavy you need for the activity you're doing. Ascent also gives you access to some cool DPS combinations with the insta reload of canceling your grapple on the point, but there is a cooldown to this fragment now, so not as good as it used to be, but something you can start doing on Titan and Warlock. But tomorrow I'll be showing off an even better strand combo that you should learn, so this one isn't too important. Also this season, this build is even better with the artifact perks, where your strand weapons gain unraveling rounds when you gain Woven Mel. That also increases the amount of damage dealt by unraveling a target. And those 2 perks alone make the Navigator a lot better in terms of its own accurate and damage, which helps it feed into the Verity's Brow and death throws ×5 even easier. And overall, this build is just my favorite grapple build, but now with the Navigator on it, with the infinite grapple points. And this is really good and really fun. You have really high damage resist with Woven Mel, 10 resilience, and severing the targets, and a really good accurate build and single target damage build with the infinite double damage grapples. This build is just really fun and extremely good. And with the season being built in Overload Trace Rifle, it lends itself to champion gameplay very easily with Overload there on the Navigator. Then if you want Barrier, the unraveling rounds on a strand machine gun can work there too. It will not work on Navigator, you can't have two on one weapon at the same time. And that just leaves Unstoppable, which we mentioned before. If you use the new aspect, you can throw the tangles at the Unstoppable champions and stun them. And now moving on to the damage resist build. There's all kinds of DR in this game. A lot of it is not very practical to actually use like in a gameplay loop. So what I want to do was revisit one of my favorite DR builds of all time on Hunter and add in the Navigator and see all the new stuff that we can do with it. And that's going to be the Renewal Grasp on Hunter, which it's been a minute, so recapping what it does. Your dust-filled grenades have a much larger effect radius. Allies inside the dust field take reduced damage, and targets inside the area deal reduced damage. So we combine that with the Touch of Winter, where our dust field grenades increase slow field size and create a small stasis crystal on impact, along with this fragment right here, Durance, where slows from your abilities last longer. For those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. And finally, another important fragment will be Chains, where when we're near a crystal or a frozen target, we take reduced damage. So now with all those things going on, our dust field will last for over 11 seconds and give us multiple DRs. When we're in the dust field, we'll take 25% less damage and 40% from chains over near the crystal or a frozen target, along with enemies inside the dust field will do 50% less damage. And combining that with tier 10 resilience for 30%, then the Navigator for both Sever and Woven Mel. Sever will make the target do 33% less damage, and Woven Mel will be 60%, which is still, I don't know how it's that high. Then this season it's also Overload Trace Rifle, which if you read it, whenever you disrupt a enemy, not just a champion, it will delay ability energy and lower their damage output. And as mentioned, that will not only work on champions. Whenever you hold down the trigger, you'll get the overload shot around the same time you proc Woven Mel. So now all in all, these are all the resists we have going on. And the way you calculate total resist is you take 1 minus the percent. So you do the inverse, multiply them all together, and take the inverse once again to get back to the damage resist. So really you're calculating the damage you take and not the damage you resist. And the total is going to be almost 97%, which is obviously quite a lot. So what does that even look like in the game? Well, even without Carl being in the bubble, which is going to be another 50%, I mean, the game, I think it knows I should be taking damage, but I definitely am not. The health bar doesn't even like fully render in. So yeah, it's pretty much impossible to die with all those things going on. And with this build, with Grim Harvest, Fissures, and we also have Shards and Rending, along with the two we've already shown off, Chains and Durance, it's going to be pretty easy to take advantage of most of those at all times. So I usually run, like usual, a demo weapon, then whatever heavy of choice. And looking at our mods, I have a Ashes Assets, Void Siphon, and a Strength Siphon. Then I have a Firepower, double Grenade Kickstart, then a Charged Up, along with double Wood Reserves, Stacks on Stacks, double Innovation, Bomber, Distribution, and Powerful Attraction. So once again, kind of the normal stuff. And the uptime on the grenade isn't quite what it was in the old version of this build with the OG Firepower mod, but it's still very high. And as long as you get like a few kills with the demo weapon, you definitely have infinite dust-filled grenades. And whenever you're in that grenade, and with Woven Mel and all that other good stuff we already showed off, I mean, you just simply basically don't take damage, right? And the cool thing about this build is the benefits from the Hunter exotic isn't just for you, it's actually for all allies. And along with the Navigator, where you can shoot your allies to give them Woven Mel, you can give most of this DR, if not all of it, to your allies also. The only thing they'll be missing is Whisper of Chains if they're not running that fragment themselves. But the Sever, the Overload, both of the exotic DRs, then they also need tier 10 resilience, and you'll be giving them Woven Mel. Everything else you can give your allies in this build, and they can receive the same 97% DR. So yeah, that is my full out DR build on the Navigator. along with my all-out grapple build on Warlock. Both builds are very good and super fun, so definitely check them out. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.
Dense hive signatures in a facility up